4 a.m. The rest of the city was still deep in sleep. Jade Cruz was already on her feet, ready to take on another long day. She ran a food truck, small but full of life, just like the woman behind the grill. Every morning she parked it at the same corner, where the smell of sautéed garlic and grilled meat mingled with the crisp dawn air. "Hey, Jade, early again, huh?" called out an old woman carrying vegetables. "No choice, ma'am. Gotta hustle to survive," she replied, not stopping as she flipped meat in the pan. Jade was not the type of girl who fantasized about knights in shining armor. At 28, she had never been in love. Not because no one tried, but because no one ever got close enough. No boyfriend since birth, her friends often teased. But she didn't mind. To the people around her, Jade was their lovable firecracker, loud, headstrong, and fearless. She did everything herself: grocery runs, marinating meat, slicing veggies, setting up the truck, cleaning the stove. No one helped her, and she didn't ask for it either. That's how she lived: independent, proud, and never dependent on anyone. That morning, just like every other, Jade went to the market after securing her usual spot. She visited her regular vendors, asked for prices, inspected every onion and cut of meat like a pro. The market buzzed with familiar greetings and laughter. People loved her, not just for her cooking, but for her genuine care and presence in the community. No one could have guessed that this peaceful morning would mark the turning point of her life. A string of events would unfold in mere seconds, shattering the little world Jade had built with her own hands. And it would all start with a man. A stranger. A shadow walking in daylight. A man no one dared to cross. A man who carried danger like perfume and power like a second skin. A man whose heart had forgotten how to beat. His name was Aries Morello, and Jade's destiny would begin not with roses, but with gunfire. The first sound wasn't the usual market chatter or the familial rumble of wheels. It was a gunshot, sharp, dry, and terrifyingly out of place. Jade froze, looking up from the chicken vendor's stall. Her instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Screams began rippling through the crowd like falling dominoes. Panic erupted. Vendors tripped over their own tables. Elderly women tumbled. Children cried out in terror. "What the hell's going on?" Jade shouted, but no one answered. Her eyes followed the rising smoke and the guns. There were men shooting in the middle of her beloved market. A black SUV screeched to a stop. Burnt rubber sliced the air. The doors flung open, and several men in black poured out, guns drawn, eyes hunting. And then the last one stepped out, Aries Morello. No one knew his name yet, but the way he moved, like a predator in control, commanded silence. Jade ducked behind her food truck. She wasn't one to scare easily, but this wasn't just chaos. This was cold, orchestrated violence. Her world of food, fire, and friendly chatter replaced by smoke and fear. Another bang. Closer. A body crashed against her truck, knocking over her hot oil pan. Hours of prep splattered across the street. Her adobo, her garlic rice, her chili vinegar sauce, gone in seconds. "Putangina ka!" she cursed, fury overtaking fear. She stormed out from her hiding spot and walked straight into the chaos, right up to the man she knew was behind it all. "What kind of monster are you?" she screamed. "Look what you did to my setup." Aries turned. His storm gray eyes locked onto her as if he was seeing a real human for the first time. His men raised their guns, but he raised his hand. "Stop." "Who are you?" he asked, voice low and gravelly. "Who the hell are you?" Jade barked back. "And why the hell are you turning our market into a war zone? Ever heard of respect?" No one had ever talked to Aries like that. Not women, not rivals, not even his own men. But here was this woman, wearing an oil-stained apron, hair tied up in frustration, eyes blazing like wildfire, standing her ground without a trace of fear. He scanned the area. Everyone had fled, everyone but her. "Pay for what you destroyed," Jade said. Her voice trembled, but from rage, not fear. "I worked for everything you just ruined." Aries narrowed his eyes. There was something about her, something so strange, so unexpected that it made him smirk, a small, cynical curve of the lips, but the first real emotion he'd shown in years. "Let's fix that," he said. "Come with me." "What? Are you insane?" Jade fired back, not realizing that in that exact moment her fate had just taken a detour from which there would be no return. She twisted hard, grounding herself like she'd done in crowded kitchens 1,000 times. "Let me go unless you want a broken rib," Jade growled, elbowing the man gripping her arm square in the ribs. He flinched, but didn't loosen his hold. "Boss just wants to talk," said Dante Hale, his voice calm like this was just another Tuesday. "Talk? What, he doesn't have a phone?" she shouted, flailing like a wildcat backed into a corner. Jade was never the damsel type. She was a fighter, a survivor. She didn't just yell, she acted. Years of running a food truck alone had taught her how to throw hands and handle life. Being dragged into a black SUV wasn't on her checklist, and hell if she'd go quietly. In a swift motion, she spun around and kicked the car door open. It slammed with a metallic clang. "I don't know what fantasy world you guys live in, but you can't just do whatever the hell you want because you're rich." "Ma'am, please." Dante reached out, trying to block her escape, but before he could lay a finger on her, Jade grabbed his wrist and twisted it hard. A crack echoed slightly. Dante winced but held his composure. "You're strong. You haven't even seen my full strength," Jade snapped, eyes blazing. "Enough." The voice cut through the air like a blade, firm, cold, undeniable. Aries Morello stepped forward. He didn't touch anyone. He didn't need to. Power followed him like a shadow, wrapping the space in quiet dread. "Let her in," he said. "Let me in? Who the hell said I was coming with you?" Jade pointed straight at him. "Just because you wear suits and have bodyguards doesn't make you God. I don't owe you a damn thing." Aries stared at her. His gaze could make grown men tremble, but Jade didn't flinch. "Go ahead, keep staring. I'm not scared of you," she said, chin high. A smirk flickered so briefly it was almost invisible, but Dante saw it. The first break in Aries' steel composure. "Very well, I won't force you," Aries said, stepping back. "But if you walk away now, you'll never know why a man like me stopped everything for a girl in an apron." "Good, because I don't care," Jade shot back, spinning on her heel. But before she could take a full step, 3 more SUVs pulled in, boxing her in. Jade glanced around, surrounded, no exit. "I knew it," she muttered, clenching her fists. "You said I had a choice. You lied." Aries shrugged. "I said I wouldn't force you. I never said I'd let you go." Jade took a deep breath, then climbed into the SUV on her own. "Fine, but touch me, and I swear to God, you'll leave here with fewer teeth." The vehicle drove through quiet city streets, slowly transitioning into forest roads. Trees thickened outside the window, casting heavy shadows under a fading sun. "Where are we?" she asked, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "No one will hear you scream here," Aries said, half joking. "Great," Jade replied flatly, "because you'll be the first to scream." Dante chuckled softly. Aries remained silent, just watching her. "So let me guess," Jade continued. "Kidnapping's your hobby? Mafia? Or do you just like screwing up innocent people's lives for fun?" Aries turned, resting an arm on the headrest. "None of those." "Then what are you?" "I saw something in you," he said calmly. "You didn't back down. Not from me, not from my men. You fought. So now you're obsessed? Maybe I just want to know what makes you unbreakable." Jade laughed bitterly. "You can watch all you want, but you'll never own me." The SUV finally stopped in front of a mansion deep in the woods. Ivy-covered iron gates swung open slowly, revealing a grand estate that looked like it had been plucked from a Gothic novel. Jade stepped out, but not to admire the place. Her glare was fixed on Aries. "If you think I'm going to be impressed by all this money, I've got news for you. You can't buy me." "I don't intend to," Aries replied, hands in his pockets, calm, unshaken. I just want to study you. Study me? Jade raised an eyebrow. Do I look like a damn lab rat to you? No, but you're the first woman who's made me feel, he paused, searching, off balance? Jade smirked. Good, I hope you fall. As the heavy doors of the mansion slammed shut behind her, she stood there, silent but defiant. Aries turned and walked away, but his heart was beating faster than usual. She was different, and for the first time in years, he didn't just want control, he wanted to keep her. Jade stood in the grand foyer like someone dropped into a gothic nightmare. A double staircase curled above her, crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, and marble tiles echoed every breath, yet the silence felt dangerously loud. Nice house, she muttered, sarcasm thick. Shame, it feels haunted. No one replied. Adez descended from the upper floor, sleeves rolled up, shirt collar loose. He looked like he'd just returned from a boardroom, not like someone who'd kidnapped a woman an hour ago. Welcome, he said, in his usual low tone. What, no welcome drink? Or is solitary confinement next on the list? Jade snapped, arms crossed in the middle of the foyer like a general. Do you always talk this much? Aries asked as he came closer. Only when I'm kidnapped, she scoffed, which, apparently, is how I now spend Mondays. He stopped, only steps away. His eyes bore into her, but Jade didn't flinch, didn't look away. Stay as long as you want, he said. No one will touch you. You're free to roam. Roam? What am I, a pet in your exotic zoo? He exhaled slowly. You misunderstood. I'm not trying to tame you. Oh no, honey, Jade cut in. You never could. He stared like she was a puzzle he wasn't used to failing. Not because he was mad, but because he wasn't used to being challenged, especially not here. Not by a woman. Has she been shown her room? Dante interjected, appearing from the hall. No, and if I had it my way, I'd sleep on the damn gate, Jade answered. Aries motioned calmly. Guest room, end of the right wing, let her settle. Settle? You mean survive? She called after them, but Dante was already walking. With no choice, she followed. The room was bigger than her old apartment. White walls, soft linens, windows facing the deep woods. Still. Too quiet. Unnaturally clean. She walked to the window and flung it open. Wind poured in, heavy with moss and damp forest air. So this is it, she muttered. The beginning of my tragic ending? A knock at the door. She didn't answer. But the door opened anyway. Arrest. Seriously? No knock-knock joke? She said without turning. He glanced around the room, then said, You're quiet. That's rare. Don't get used to it, Jade replied. I'm just recharging. He entered like it was his space, no hesitation. Why don't you leave? The door's open. Because you clearly have armed guards surrounding this forest, she said flatly. Don't play clever. Tension crept in like fog. Jade continued. If you brought me here to scare me, sorry. I've faced worse. Life's a battlefield. I wake up swinging. Aries smirked faintly. I believe you. Then drop this game. You don't want a woman like me around. Maybe I do, he said softly. Maybe it's exactly the chaos I need. She paused, just for a breath, then shrugged. Well, congrats, you found the Queen of Chaos, but don't expect me to fold. He stared again, longer this time, like her defiance wasn't an obstacle, but a spark. I never said I wanted you to. On her third night in the mansion, Jade still couldn't sleep. Wind tapped against the window panes. Somewhere in the distant woods, an owl called into the darkness. No car horns, no chatter, nothing familiar. Everything was too still. The danger wasn't what scared her anymore. It was the strange, creeping feeling of safety. And that, more than anything, terrified her. She turned in bed, restless. The sheets were perfect, untouched, like a hotel room where nothing truly lived. There was a weight in her chest, not from fear of what Aries might do to her, but from the fact that he hadn't done anything at all. She'd expected chains, threats, intimidation, but instead, for 3 days, he had been present, quiet, patient, and, most confusingly, lonely. She didn't trust it. Kindness in her world always had a price, but Aries offered none, just space and silence, which, in some twisted way, made it harder to resist. The next morning she was woken by a gentle knock. Jade cracked the door open, ready to snap, but paused when she saw who was holding the breakfast tray. A Res Morello. Not a bodyguard, not a maid, just him, holding a wooden tray with black coffee, toast, and carefully sliced fruit. "Where's everyone else?" she asked groggily, suspicion in her tone. "Busy," he replied, "so I did it." She stared at the tray, then at him. "Is this another mind game?" "Maybe," he said, setting the tray on her desk, "but I meant it." She threw on a robe, walked over, and folded her arms. She didn't eat. She just stood there, studying him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Because it feels like you're trying to mess with my head." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat down and looked up at her. "Because you're already in mine. I figured it's only fair." That afternoon, they had lunch together in the garden behind the greenhouse. For the first time, there were no threats, no guns tucked in belts, no veiled warnings, just two people. One a criminal trying to feel human again, the other a woman too honest to pretend. "What did you do before this?" Jade asked, picking at a slice of pear. Aries raised a brow. "Seriously? Who knows? Maybe you used grill street food like me. Got promoted to Mafia prince." He chuckled. "Soft, genuine, a rare thing." "No, but I used to fix cars when I was a teen. Real work, honest." "Then why this?" she asked, eyes narrowing. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then, because power makes men feel invincible, until they meet someone who makes them feel small. She stared at him. "Do I make you feel small?" "No," he replied. "You make me feel real." The sun began to dip. Golden light fell across her shoulders as she stood by a small wooden table, flipping through a book she'd found in the mansion's dusty library. Aries stepped in, jacket slung over his arm, clearly on his way out, but paused. "People like you," he said slowly, "make places like this feel less haunted." "It's worse, actually," Jay whispered, "because even when I know this is wrong, even when I know I should hate you, I don't, not the way I should." They both stood in silence, no smirks, no walls. Jade stepped forward. "Tell me something real, not about crime, not about power, just you." He looked at her. Then, "I was 8 when I saw my father kill someone." She didn't flinch, she didn't interrupt. "I told myself I'd never become him, but I did, in every way that mattered." "Then why me?" she asked quietly. "Why bring someone like me into this?" "Because the moment you screamed at me in that market, I remembered who I was before the blood." That night, on her way back to her room, she passed the main hall and paused at a soft, unfamiliar sound. Piano. Fragile. Hesitant. Broken notes searching for melody. Jade crept toward the open door. Aries sat alone, playing with the clumsiness of someone who never had the luxury of art, but who needed it now more than ever. The melody faltered, but it was honest. She stood there in the shadows, silent. And in that moment, she understood. Beneath all that armor was someone learning how to love. Awkwardly, slowly, and without knowing how. It wasn't fear anymore. It was the turning point. And Jade wasn't sure she wanted to run anymore. The next morning, Jade walked into the kitchen with her hair messy and her mood worse. She didn't know how long she'd slept, couldn't remember her dreams. Just that her heart still felt like it hadn't found its rhythm since the night before. She hadn't tried to escape, not because she couldn't, but because, slowly, a part of her didn't want to. Aries was already at the table, a black folder open in front of him. He wore a gray, button-down, no tie, sleeves neatly rolled. A steaming cup of coffee sat untouched beside him, and his eyes, like always, saw more than she wanted to reveal. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, not looking up from the file. "Depends," she replied flatly. "Are we finally going to talk about what the hell I am to you?" Aries shut the folder and gestured to the chair across from him. "Listen carefully," he said. His voice wasn't cold, but it held a gravity that made her stop fidgeting. "You're not a prisoner here. You can leave anytime you want." Jade squinted. "Seriously?" "There's a condition," he said. "An offer. You can say no." She folded her arms. "Okay, I'm listening." "I want you to stay," he said, "not as a hostage, not as a servant, not under any title. I want you to be an advisor to me." Jade burst out laughing. "Advisor? On your Mafia lifestyle?" "No, on real life," he said. "I don't know how to talk to people. I don't trust anyone. But I trust you, at least enough to believe you'll tell me the truth." She stopped laughing. "And in return?" she asked, voice low. Aries met her gaze. "Freedom," he said. "You'll have full freedom to come and go. Funds to start again, if that's what you want. A second chance. After 6 months, no chains, no debts." Jade was stunned, not because she believed him, but because, deep down, she wanted to. "Is there a contract? A signature?" she teased. Aries gave her a rare smile. "Paper or not, my word doesn't come cheap." That night, Jade sat alone in the greenhouse, the soft hum of crickets outside the only sound. In her hands was a printed outline of Aries' offer. She read it again and again, like she was trying to dissect herself from the words. Advisor, an outsider being invited into the mind of a man made from shadows. No expectations of affection, no pressure, just a strange, quiet invitation. Dangerous, surreal, and weirdly sincere. She looked up through the dusty glass dome. A single star shot across the sky. Was fate testing her? Or was Aries Morello truly the first man not trying to own her, but asking permission to keep her near? 3 weeks later, Aries called a meeting in the old warehouse, the one that had once served as the beating heart of his empire. There were no drinks, no fancy setup, just a dusty microphone, old speakers, and nearly 50 men standing shoulder to shoulder. Some were young, some older, some loyal, some uncertain. Jade stood in the back, silent. She wasn't forced to be there, she chose to come. Because the night before, he had whispered 3 words. "It ends tomorrow." Aries stepped onto the wooden platform. No bodyguards, no weapons, no mask of control, just Aries, the man, stripped of title and fear. "I've spent nearly 2 decades in the dark," he began, voice low but firm. "Built power through silence, fear, and faces too afraid to look me in the eye." No one moved, but one person didn't look away, didn't bow. And because of her, I saw it, that all I've built wasn't real. His eyes swept across the crowd, then landed on Dante, his most trusted lieutenant, the man who had walked beside him since the beginning. "I don't want this anymore. I'm ending it. As of today, this organization is no more." A ripple moved through the room. Murmurs, blinking. One man even laughed in disbelief. Dante took a step forward. "Boss, are you sure?" Aries nodded. "We've all lost something in this life. Maybe it's time we try to live instead of just surviving." Dante looked at him long and hard. Then slowly he said, "I've been tired for years." Another man nodded. Then another. Jade stood still in the shadows, her hands clenched, not from fear of failure, but because, for the first time, she saw Aries not as powerful, but as brave. He pulled off his ring, the one symbolizing command, and placed it on the wooden podium. A soft clink. But it echoed like the end of a dynasty. "No more orders. No more boss. From this day forward, you're all free." And then he stepped down. He walked past the men who once bowed before him, No one blocked his way. Outside, the late afternoon sun poured over him like a quiet blessing. He stopped in front of Jade. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. He looked at him not with hate, not even with pity, but with the quiet eyes of someone who finally believed. That day, an empire didn't fall by force. It dissolved, not through blood, but because one man chose to let go. 1 month after dissolving the organization, they moved to Jade's hometown, a quiet mountain town where the skies were endlessly blue and every shop closed by 6 p.m. No one knew who Aries really was, but everyone felt something unusual about the silent man who walked behind Jade each morning, carrying a basket of vegetables, wearing slippers, and nodding at strangers like he was learning how to be human from scratch. "Hey Jade, that guy with you, your husband?" a storekeeper asked, eyes gleaming with curiosity. Jade smiled. "Not exactly, but maybe." The woman laughed, glancing Aries up and down. "Quiet type, but looks kind." Aries gave a polite nod. He didn't understand all the words, but he understood enough to feel something he hadn't in years. Acceptance. They rented a small wooden house at the edge of town. It wasn't big, not fancy, but it had a little backyard where Jade planted chili, scallions, and wildflowers. Aries had never lived anywhere without iron gates or security cameras. That first night, he couldn't sleep. "It's too quiet," he muttered. "You'll get used to it," Jade whispered, pulling the blanket over him. "Here, the noisiest thing is a frog." The next day, Aries tried to cook rice. It burned. He tried watering the garden. He slipped. He tried fixing the faucet. It broke completely. Each time he failed, Jade just looked at him, smirked, and held out her hand. "Move over. I've got this." Together, they opened a small food stall near the market. Breakfast only, steamed buns, rice porridge, and iced coffee. Aries worked in the back. Jade took orders. No one in town could believe Jade Cruz had someone helping her in the kitchen. "What do you call him now?" one older lady asked, sipping her coffee. Jade only smiled. "Partner." Aries learned to smile, to say yes ma'am politely, to buy the right kind of rice, to wait instead of command, and more than anything, he learned to love through action, not words. One day, when their food cart got stuck on a steep hill, he rolled up his sleeves and pushed like hell until the wheels turned. "You made it," Jace said, sweat on her brow. "You're officially one of us now." At night, they sat behind their little house, sipping ginger tea and watching fireflies. No more gunshots, no shadows of the past, just laughter. Brief, but real. Aries looked at the wooden house like a castle. Not because it was big, but because, for the first time in his life, he finally had a place that felt like home. Peace never lasts long. One summer morning, as Jade and Aries were on their way to deliver breakfast to the town market, their small delivery van was forced off the road by a black, unmarked SUV. Before Aries could react, 2 armed men smashed the window. A familiar figure stepped out of the car behind them. "Cassandra." "Miss me?" she sneered, the sunlight glinting off the gun in her hand. Aries stepped in front of Jade, shielding her, but Cassandra raised a hand. "No, darling. Today, it's her I want." A tall man climbed out of the second vehicle. Lucian, as cold and brutal as his name. He pressed a gun to Aries' head. "Move, and I shoot." Jade was dragged from the car, hands zip-tied behind her back. Aries shouted, struggling, but he was outnumbered. "You left me for her?" Cassandra whispered, crouching beside Jade. "Let's see how long you last without her." They were taken to an abandoned warehouse. Aries was beaten and tied to a chair. Jade, though terrified, stayed calm. This was the first time she had truly stood face to face with death, and there was no one left to save her. "He won't make it in time," Cassandra mocked. "And I want you to know what it's like to have everything stolen." Lucian stepped forward, raising his gun toward Jade. In that instant, she struck, kicking his knee, then biting the wrist of the man holding her down. A misfire. A gunshot rang out, deafening. It missed, Barely, Jade grabbed a loose pipe and swung it hard. Blood spattered from Lucien's forehead. She had fought. Not for Ares, not for revenge, but to save herself. Just then, tires screeched outside. Boots thudded against concrete. A voice rang out, "Don't touch her!" Dante, he stormed in, gun drawn. Cassandra stepped back, startled. Behind him, several others entered. Men Ares had once freed, now returning the favor. Within minutes, the warehouse was surrounded. Cassandra tried to escape but was tackled by Dante. Lucien collapsed, unconscious. Staggered to his feet, eyes scanning frantically, for one person only. He found her. Jade was still standing, hands trembling, blood on her shirt. But her eyes, they hadn't broken. In them burned a fire Ares had never seen before. "Are you okay?" he asked, pulling her into his arms. Jade leaned on his shoulder, breathless. "For the first time, I didn't need to be saved," she whispered. "But I'm glad you came." 3 weeks after the kidnapping, things began to return to normal. The little town was calm again. Their breakfast stall reopened. Ares was back to waking up early and joining Jade at the market. No more enemies. No more guns. No more nightmares. Just hands learning how to plant seeds, not pull triggers. One quiet afternoon, as the golden sun leaned against the hills, Ares took Jade to the riverside, the place where they once had their first argument about which coffee blend to serve. "Remember this spot?" he asked, hands in his pockets. "Of course," Jade laughed. "Where I almost walked off because you said my coffee was too strong." Ares was silent for a moment. Then he pulled out a ring, no diamonds, no sparkle, just a simple silver band engraved with one word. Home. "The first time I proposed, the world was chaos," he said. "This time, I want to do it in peace." Jade didn't cry, she just nodded, because she knew this was the first time he was truly himself. After a small wedding with a handful of neighbors and Dante reluctantly as best man, they settled into a quiet life. Ares apprenticed under the village carpenter. Every morning he sanded planks, measured wood, bent over tables, clumsy but patient and completely sincere. The townsfolk grew fond of Jade's quiet husband. Once he was even invited to speak at the harvest festival, though he only managed 3 full sentences. Jade remained the same, sharp, witty, grounded, but now whole. She once thought she needed wealth, fame, or freedom, but now all she wanted was to cook each evening beside the man who once made the world tremble, now slicing onions, blinking through tears, beside her. Love doesn't erase the scars, but it teaches you how to live with them, and maybe even build something beautiful on top. Ares used to be a name people feared, a shadow. Now, he was the man who made a woman feel safe enough to stay. And that was enough. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real life worth living.